the technology that's out there and the folks that aren't aware of it is astounding to me. To let them know that IDS can show up with a drone operator and totally map your project down to like a millimeter, the entire exterior, roof, and parking lot of your facility in less than 4 or 5 hours is amazing.
This is From Paint to Purpose, a podcast by FCP Services, where we believe people drive growth, exploring topics related to company culture, leadership, and construction industry insights. Now your host.
Welcome everybody. Today we have Dave Bishop. I am Yahaira Vargas, and this is From Paint to Purpose. Hi Dave, how are you?
I'm very well. How are you, Yahaira?
I am very good. I'm super excited about this podcast because, you were at the Hotel Point and you told me different kinds of stuff, and I just wanted to talk about that too.
Great.
But let's start with you first. Can you tell us about your career journey?
Sure. I'm a retired police officer, actually. This is my second career, and I've been in facilities management for about 15 years. Started in retail, segued into higher ed, moved from higher ed into K-12, and my latest venture has been in hospitality, which has been quite a roller coaster. The past 20 months has been very interesting. So we've learned, which I think my past has really prepped me to handle what we just went through the last 20 months. When you work in K-12, you learn that baling wire and duct tape go a long way, and that's basically where we've been in hospitality for nearly 2 years. We're starting to see some stability re-enter the market, so that's been good. But I feel like I was prepped for it, so I think we fared pretty well.
Can you tell us more about those challenges that have been happening?
Yeah, and mostly with cash flow. I think when COVID, and it was Friday the 13th, March the 13th of 2020 was probably one of the worst days of my professional life. Went through that morning, which we kind of saw this coming. The writing was on the wall. We kind of understood what the market was doing. We started to see a lot of cancellations. Most of our hotels, again, with Atrium Hospitality, we have 84 hotels and resorts across the country. We started to see a lot of group cancellations. And I was in Murfreesboro, Tennessee that Monday, Tuesday, working with an energy conservation contractor, going through that hotel and another one we have in Nashville. And I got a call to hop on a corporate call that morning, and our guidance was off. And then another call to hop on another call at noon where our guidance was off again. By that evening, I got in my car and started driving back. I said, okay, something's way off. Yeah. So I got back and we started to see the market crumble. Come Friday, I handed out bonus checks to my whole team. We still did the paper bonus checks individually and handed those out. And I had a lot of folks talking about what they were going to go buy. And I went, you might want to hold on to those. Don't know what the market's doing right now. Furloughed everyone on that team that afternoon. It was terrible, absolutely terrible. A lot of those folks, remained furloughed and have found other jobs, other careers now. I've been able to get a couple people back. But yeah, that was pretty bad. And that was the beginning of a very long slog of minimal staffing, asset protection, and just really kind of building this airplane as we flew it, because it hadn't been through anything this severe before ever professionally. When it came to cash flow and how to preserve and protect our assets.
What has been some of the best decisions you made that worked and some that didn't when it came to furloughing people?
Oh, well, there were no good decisions when it came to furloughing other than reducing payroll to where we could survive. We were really at a point about a month in where we didn't know as an organization if we would survive this. Luckily for us, we're privately owned. We have an ownership group that really believes in what they're doing and saw some opportunity to continue to keep our business afloat and possibly grow and expand through this, trying to find the silver lining in this event was bank-owned properties and some third-party management opportunities that we set ourselves up for. But there really wasn't anything good that came out of this, for about the first year. And then we started to see some business coming back and, really focusing on customer service. We had an opportunity to do some kind of internal soul searching and understanding our policies and procedures and revamping some of the ways that we do business. And one of the big things we were able to do is go through and evaluate. We had a multitude of software programs that we were using, everything from architectural and project management to invoice processing and software for HR and things like that. So we really were able to go through and look at our capital planning process and streamline that with our work order process. So now we can plan, which, one of the great things that came out of this is there's usually an annual budgeting process that takes place. And, it's an exercise that nobody likes in this industry because there's never enough cash to do everything you want to do, but there becomes a hierarchy of needs. And we were able to work with Transcendent, who's our partner in our work order process, and develop a long-range capital facilities planning process and program that combined with our work order system. So now we plan year round. There's no more wish lists. There's no more, every year going through this whole build a list program and, take the projects that didn't get finished last year and do that. But rolling this in actually gave us the ability to enroll all of our assets. So any of our tagged or known assets in every property, which could be as small as a pump motor in a kitchen to as large as a chiller, are all known and tagged now, and they auto-populate on a replacement plan. So there's no more going through and finding these things as surprises. They all auto-populate over a replacement cycle, which is great. So, that's one of the good things that came out of this, probably one of the best things. And we were able to do it with a small staff. So we're able to train up a smaller staff and get them streamlined and used to it and understanding how the process works. So then they can go out and train their folks to do it as we start to scale up again for big business. So that's really my silver lining discussion and really the best thing that came out of this. The 12 hours, 6-7 days a week working, dealing with flooded buildings that people don't find for 2 or 3 days because there's only one person in the building. Not good. That's all painful. So hopefully we're past the worst of that. And, we're on the other side. We're starting to see our group rebook. We're busy again in a lot of markets. We're doing very well. So it's good to see that come back. So just finished our budget for 22, just rolled it out, got it to all the properties. So all of our folks are aware of what CapEx dollars they have to spend next year, which is great.
That's awesome.
Mm-hmm.
So I see that you were able to take a step back and just do process improvements and like, hey, what works and what doesn't? And taking the opportunity to just do it just sounds really awesome. And I think a lot of companies are doing that. Speaking of, you were talking about beliefs a little earlier in the question that I had asked you. What is Atrium's belief and their mission, and how do you relate to that?
Atrium's biggest mission is service. Service to the associates that work for Atrium, service to our customers, and understanding what their needs are, meeting and exceeding their expectations has really been a belief that's been drilled into all of the associates across the spectrum. For my team and myself, understanding asset protection is everything for us. Without that asset, we can't provide those services. We can't provide a good guest experience. We can't do a lot of those things that the end result is you had a good experience here. Either a convention took place or an expo took place or a meeting took place, or maybe you're just traveling with your family and you had a great experience at one of our properties, for a weekend. That's really what we're striving for, is to make sure that everybody enjoys their time, that we provide a great atmosphere and a relaxing atmosphere for our guests. So I think that, generally that's really what, at the end of the day, that's what we want to do.
So, how do you motivate your employees?
Well, there's a lot of ways. One is through consistency and having high expectations, and another is through a rewards program. So in the hospitality industry, there's a lot of celebrations, and it's funny. During COVID, I actually had a discussion with a chief engineer that ended up leaving our company because he was very hospitality oriented, but he also, when it came down to it, I thought it was his working conditions. Maybe there was too much pressure. There was, maybe the role was too big, and it all boiled down to he really, really missed the stand-ups and the celebrations and the get-togethers and the acknowledgement, which at that time it was, whatever hands you had available, there was a lot of work involved, and there wasn't a whole lot of, backslapping and telling everybody you're doing a great job. It was, this is what we need to do, and we need to do it right now, and then we need to do this, and then we need to do that. So there was a lot of reactionary management happening, and this individual just was not familiar with that. You learn in crisis situations, which I came from that world. You learn the people that handle it well and the people that don't. And we lost a few fairly long time employees over what I would consider a lack of being able to handle crisis situations. It was just beyond their reach. And I get that. Not everybody's cut out for it. So you really find what people are made of when you have to pull together with a small team and accomplish a big task.
What qualities do you look for when you add someone to your team?
I really look for, not necessarily all the time, looking for people that have an ingrained sense of, this is how I do it. We have a large organization with a lot of knowledge base, so I look for people that are trainable and moldable and that want to grow. And I will take that person, whether and I don't want to say this out loud, but we will go within the hotel and find somebody maybe working in banquets that has a really good work ethic, that shows up every day, that really takes pride in what they do. And we'll pull them into engineering and we will teach them engineering from the ground up the way Atrium does it, which is huge. And I like doing that. I love to watch people grow. I love to talk with people that come in as chief engineer and area chief engineer and say, you know what, I would love for you to take my job someday. Come on in, do it. We'll train you. We'll do everything we can, but you have to show that you have the mettle to make that happen. It's a huge commitment. So with the workforce, where it is in 2021, moving into 2022, skilled tradespeople are rare. They're hard to find, and it's that lot is getting smaller and smaller. So with all the moving parts and pieces that a chief engineer deals with in our hotels, everything from HVAC to lighting, to sound systems, to roofing, building envelopes, as you guys well know, you really have to have a person with a broad skill set. And if they don't have a broad skill set, you need to be able to expand that skill set some way or another. And we have a pretty good internal program to help make that happen. And we hope to build on that. Now that we're gearing back up, we'll get our trainings back together. We'll get all of our learning materials dusted off and pushed back out. But that's a big challenge, is finding talent these days. Mm-hmm. So if you can't find the talent, you have to find a spark that really ignites a person to go out and want to learn and want to grow and want to expand.
Can you share more of that program that you're talking about?
It's really an introductory program of coming into the organization, and it's a mentor-mentee. We set that person up with a seasoned chief engineer that understands how our hotels typically work. Systems are pretty consistent when you go to big box hotels with comfort loops. The number one item in hotels, it's funny because it's one of the questions I always ask any person that's interviewing for a job is, what's the most important aspect of this job? And it's a trick question because nobody ever gets it right. But the answer to me is hot water. People can go without a lot of things. But I tell you what, if you don't have hot water, it's a big deal. It's a big deal. So, keeping the hot water loop up and functional is always a big thing. And, it's just kind of one of those funny questions that you ask. But, there's a lot of truth in that. And understanding how a hotel works and understanding your business, I mentioned Transcendent a little earlier. That's our work order system. In that system are morning, afternoon, and evening rounds. And that is getting that person away from whatever they're doing, whether it's paperwork or whether it's, dealing with employee issues or dealing with GMs or whatever, and getting them out to walk that hotel, to understand, to hear it, to smell it, to see it, to understand how that building's operating. Every building is like any other human, any living organism. It has a frequency, it has a pulse, it has, just all of those familiar things that you get when you walk through, whether it's a mechanical room or you're walking a roof or you're walking back of house. There's always a rhythm to how that building operates. And a good chief engineer that's in tune understands when that rhythm's off and start working the 5 whys to get to what's different, what's changed, and getting into that fix. So we make sure that we get people to cover those areas in the hotels and understand those spaces that people might not have been in for a little while, that they're in those spaces regularly and understanding how that works. So that's a big part of our process, is that system in particular. And it's funny because when we give the Transcendent speech, I tell them it's the Ron Popeil method. And typically you have to be of a certain age to even know who Ron Popeil was. But he was an inventor that was on television years ago. And he always came up with these Ronco items. And it was he had the chicken roaster. And his big pitch was, you set it and forget it. And that's what we do at Transcendent. We do all the loading up front. You set that program and you forget it. Now it's telling you, hey, here's what you need to do. So you really don't have to think about that or do a lot of that planning. It's been done for you. You just have to follow the program. And that really helps us tremendously.
I've seen that a lot of reasons why people leave companies is because, there's no growth. And with that program, it's a part of attracting new talent. What are other ways you guys think you can attract more talent to trades jobs or in trade industry, our construction industry?
Yeah, I think that mining that particular group of people is, one, locating folks that have an aptitude for it and have a desire and really have that need, like to attract problem solvers, because that's typically what we do a lot of times throughout our day is we're solving problems. You're taking clues, you're investigating them, you're applying solutions, and it's really the scientific method. You propose that hypothesis, you go test it, and then you see what works and you move on. I'm a big Six Sigma guy, so I'm a very process-oriented person when it comes to attacking our work. So we'll institute and implement Six Sigma processes, and our folks won't even know that that's what it is. It's from them, this is some new directive from corporate, right? Well, not really. Well, it is, but it's a process disguised as a solution, and we'll implement that process. And you really have to go mine the folks that want to work in that way. We're not a good fit for everybody, just like any other organization. But when you have that talent and you can tap into it and grow that person from, say, a small select serve hotel, I try to identify a lot of people during the interview process. Where do you want to go with your career? Are you able to move? Because we relocate people all the time for growth opportunity. And one thing that we solved a lot of our labor issues during this crisis with complexing hotels. So typically, we have hotels in areas that are in clusters. We may have a large, Embassy Suites that's on one corner of the street, and then across the street we have a select serve Hilton Garden Inn, or a Marriott product that's an extended stay or whatever. And we started combining those roles, where before they would have individual chief engineers and full-time employees. Now we have one chief engineer that oversees a couple of supervisors at each property. And that's typically a seasoned chief that understands not only our processes and understands how the buildings work, but he's able to grow those folks into chief engineers later on. And then that person will take, hopefully, if their career path continues, they'll continue to grow and move into bigger markets and bigger hotels, and, bigger salaries, bigger bonuses. All of that continues to feed into one another. So we'll take entry-level folks that don't have a lot of knowledge, and we'll put them in these hotels and assess their ability to learn, adapt, grow, and move. And that's a big thing for us.
Is that vetting process similar to when you need to partner with new subcontractors or contractors for your facilities?
Absolutely. It is the same exact way. And, it's funny because I know that at some point we'll talk about FCP and IDS. And in Hotel Point, you've already mentioned. I had not met anybody from FCP. I didn't have any meetings with FCP, but I met James Lacusa on a bus when the event was over, and we were going back to the airport to fly to our respective humble abodes. And it's funny because by the end of that event, I don't know if anyone's ever explained Hotel Point to you and what happens there, but as a hotel exec, we're in, I don't know, 35 meetings, over a 2 to 3 day span. We're in boardrooms back to back to back all day long. And then in the evenings or in the afternoons, we're in one-to-ones with vendors that request to meet with us, or we request to meet with them. And, with 100 suppliers or vendors on the tap, you don't get to meet with everybody. You kind of find, I go in there with very specific goals. I need people to do this, this, and this. And at the time, didn't need coatings, really didn't need envelope. I had that, and hadn't set up a meeting with anybody. And I met James on the bus on the way back to the airport. We had a brief conversation, and that has grown into a fantastic relationship. We have a beautiful hotel. I'm actually based in Springfield, Missouri, and right down the street we have Branson, which is the country music capital of the world. Entertainment of people that you thought may have passed away 20 years ago. Now they're down in Branson. They're at a theater and they're doing great shows. And we have a very large property down there called Chateau on the Lake. And FCP came in with a fantastic plan on how to attack our mansard roof, and not only sand it and prep it, but coat it with 2 coats of paint. We're using every lift system known to man. So there's rigging, there's cranes involved, there's climbing, there's ladders, there's everything that you could possibly imagine. FCP is doing down there, and it's been a great experience. It's been a great show to watch. First of all, we had a lot of contractors go look at that in the past. And, it's a large roof. It's a big project, and there's not a flat spot on the property anywhere. So it's built in hills. It's in the hills on the banks of a large lake. So it was it's been nice to watch this process play out, and I think everybody's going to be super happy with the finished result. And in IDS, of course, learned about those guys through FCP, and ended up doing a lot of our surveys and some ADA surveys, some rooms before and after, when we renovate. So it's been a serendipitous relationship on that bus ride.
I really, really appreciate that bus ride.
Yeah, absolutely. And so do I. Anytime you meet a new vendor by happenstance like that, that's huge.
Yeah. So what do you see that stands out when you're like, I want to work for that company? Like,
yeah. You know, a lot of it's intuition. I've worked with a lot of companies, been doing this for a long time, and you just get a sense of when, you know, someone's a business development manager versus they're ingrained in the system. There's a different conversation you have with those two people. And you get somebody that knows their business, and when you talk to them about challenges, they offer a true solution, not, well, let me get you in touch with, you know, my guy that does this. You know, I can go find that person, you know, that's a different conversation. So I think that I've watched and we talked, you know, we kind of started this off with, how do I develop that relationship? And in a lot of ways, it's the same way that we hire employees, the same way that we onboard vendors and partner with vendors, is understanding, okay, I get that you can do this and that you have a team of people that do X. Let's start off with this small job over here, and let's make sure that you guys work well with us, that we work with you, that our processes aren't too strenuous, or, you know, your labor force is accurate when we talked about it. And we start off with a small job. Didn't necessarily do that with FCP. We threw a pretty big job at them right off the bat to kind of test the metal, and they rose to the occasion and been very happy with that. But, you know, different contractors in general will start small and make sure that we're a good fit for one another. And then we'll do a bigger job, and then we'll do a bigger job, and then we'll start doing multiple jobs. And that's typically how I do it. And I don't put all my eggs in one basket, you know, and I learned early on getting burned doing that. So, you know, we make sure that folks can meet the need, and we kind of grow from there.
Do you think that intuition, when choosing the correct contractor, comes from your previous background in law enforcement?
I think a lot of that intuition does. You know, I apply those same strategies to vendors and contractors and just everyday people that I meet. I think it's that antenna that's always there. It's always been there. It's just been part of my personality. And I'm a people person. My wife and I were having this conversation the other day that, you know, she does a lot of those personality tests. She has a pretty big team herself that she works with, and they do a lot of those personality exams. And she says, you know, I always come out on my personality exams as being extroverted, but compared to my extroversion, it's not even close. She said that I'm a big enough extrovert for both of us. And I agree with that. I feed off the energy of people. And these last 20 months in hospitality has been really tough because a lot of that energy that I feed off of hasn't been there. You know, I've been working from home. I'm doing Zoom calls and WebEx and GoToMeeting and, you know, and Teams and all those. And I truly, truly miss my team and that energy that I feed off of with that group of people.
So how do you stay connected with your team?
Just like this, you know, we're on Teams calls. We text a lot. You know, but it's just not the same. I don't go to an office every day. I don't have an office full of people, and you know, I don't know if that concept will ever come back. So I've had to find other ways to really build that momentum and build that synergy. And a lot of it is through instant messaging, which, you know, I've never been that person. So you just got back from Hotel Point, you know, not long ago, and that was a good energy builder. It's like, okay, got to get out, got to see people, and that kind of got the fire lit in me. My wife's 30th year reunion was a couple of weeks ago, so we went to Florida. We left there, went straight to Las Vegas alone for a week, and just had a great time. So we got out, we mingled, we danced, we gambled, we did it all. Went to a lot of shows, a lot of museums, and that's really where you know, I draw a lot of my energy from is being out with people. And it's you know, it's kind of depressing when you don't do that. So yeah, I feed off any way I can get it.
There you go. So Hotel Point, you were saying that you had a great time. Did you also play golf?
I did not. I raced go-karts.
Okay. How did that go?
It went well. It was a blast. We had an absolute blast. Yeah, I live in an area where, you know, I'm right down the street from some of the best golf courses in the country. And Johnny Morris with Bass Pro has really done a nice job in Branson with golfing in that community. I'm more of a tennis player. I've always
Okay.
played tennis since I was 6 years old. So I have golf clubs and I play, but if you give me the opportunity, I will grab my tennis bag every time and go play tennis.
Nice.
Yeah.
I just started learning to play golf because I was watching a show and they made a really good point about a lot of business is done on the golf course, and I was
It
like, okay,
is.
I need to be in. I gotta
Yeah.
be in that area
Yeah.
too. So yeah,
Yeah. I get
any
it.
tips or tricks on that?
I can, you know, golf is one of those things where just when you think you're getting good, it will humble you. But it's always that one good shot that you had that keeps you coming back. And
Yeah.
and really, if you're in it for the camaraderie and a lot of business does get taken care of on the golf course. I'm also a board member. I sit on a couple of boards. I'm the president of a school board right now, and there's a lot of similarities to that. All of your business gets done before the game, and so before you have a business meeting, I liken that to all of the prep with the committee work that gets done in board work. So, you're on the golf course and you're having a good time, and maybe you drink a couple of beers and maybe you have, some sun and some beautiful surroundings, but you also get a lot of that pre-work done before you get to that final meeting. So our board meetings and those committee meetings are very similar. No beer involved in the committee meetings.
So I want to switch gears a little, and I want to talk about some of the projects you're working on. What do you have coming up for the rest of the remaining of the year?
This year, we're finishing up PIPs, which are property improvement plans that are handed out by the brands. So we're about 50-50 with our brands. We have a lot of Marriott product, we have a lot of Hilton product, and we have some IHG and some independents. So we're heavily loaded half and half with Marriott and Hilton. So every 7 years, you have a property improvement plan that's required in order to maintain your flag, your Hilton flag, your Marriott flag, your IHG flag. And a lot of those projects were started in either 2019 or 2020 that were put on hold. With the economy and such where we were the last year, we've now restarted those projects that were in play, which was painful. You stop in our business. If we go gut an atrium or we start tearing rooms apart and then all of a sudden the economy tanked and we pushed pause, going back and understanding where were we with this project, where was it, where's our materials stored, where's our warehouse for this one, who's managing that, who was the contractor on that. We had a lot in the hopper. We were doing $175 million a year in PIPs. So to have that kind of momentum going and then just all of a sudden stop. There was, my boss and I were it. So we had to go through and figure out where's our warehousing? Where was this project when it was stopped? Where did all the material go for this project? FCP was a casualty of that on Chateau. Where were we at when we stopped that? How do we get these folks paid out for the work they did? And then we had product that expires because we don't know when we're going to restart it. So there were a lot of those variables at play in understanding how to approach that, how to contain it, and how to make it viable to restart. So we've restarted all of those projects now that were required, and we're finishing those through 21. And 22 on deck, we have some PIPs that are on deck, and some of our Hilton products. And we're the largest Embassy Suites holder in the country, so there's a lot of those that go through cycles of construction and improvement and remodel. And it may be rooms, it may be public space, it may be just a refresh on the outside, the exterior. So we're going through all of those for 22 and getting those on deck, but just really finishing our committed projects that were started in either 19 or 20 for 21. So we're trying to wrap those up now.
What's been your favorite project so far?
Whew, I I don't know that I've had a favorite project lately, but one of my favorite projects in the last few years was we have a large embassy at Dallas Fort Worth, and it's a beautiful, beautiful hotel. And we did the envelope on that hotel, and it just really turned out well. It was a great job. It went very smooth, and I can sit on the runway at DFW, which I do regularly, and see that hotel off in the distance, and it's just beautiful. So that project went well. It went without a hitch, and the final product really tied it all together. So in the last few years, that was one of my favorites. Notwithstanding, when Chateau is done, when FCP Services is done with that roof at Chateau, I won't have to put up with any of my friends that are in their boat on that lake taking pictures of it and sending it to me again, going, "What's going on with this roof?" So that's going to be a big completion, a big project, and a big feather in the cap.
Oh, well, I'm glad we are part of it.
Absolutely.
Let's see. What advice or can you give someone that wants to start a career like yours?
Oh, I moved into this by chance, really. My dad was a contractor, and he always told me to stay out of it, stay away from it. You're just going to end up chasing money your whole life. But he his advice was, if you're going to be in that business, be on the owner's side. Those folks seem to be happier and have better hours. Okay. So, as I started off in this world, I kind of, I've always had an aptitude for managing people. And I'm a great collaborator. I love to create competition. On my strengths finder, my number one strength has always been competition. So within my groups, I've always created some kind of competition, whether that's fun, whether that's a career competition without them even knowing they're playing the game. I love to kind of spin that up a little bit and get people interested, get them engaged, get them very interested in how to accomplish goals and do it effectively and efficiently. And to grow other people while they're doing it. So I challenge all of our chief engineers to make sure that they're growing their replacement. I can't grow you out of that position if I have to then go find somebody to replace you. Always have that person ready and be ready for that next opportunity. And that's what I've done my whole life, is I've always prepared myself to be ready for that opportunity that comes along. So I'm ready to take it. And I expect that out of the folks that I work with.
What is something that the general population doesn't know about a career like yours or the industry overall?
I think the general population, and it's probably, I have a lot of neighbors, that probably wonder how I have such nice stuff. This guy stays home all day. I see him go out and check the mail. I see him and his wife run in the evenings, and what does he do for a living? So there's probably a lot of mystery around that. It's a very rewarding career. In this business that we're in, it pays well. It has a lot of loyalty, and if you understand how to work it, you can live a fairly good lifestyle, and still have a really good team around you and be able to have some real satisfaction with your career. I feel fortunate to be in this world, and I'll probably continue to stay in it for a good another 10 or 15 years, just because I didn't know, I had no idea that these roles existed in hospitality. I knew somebody had to be doing this work, but didn't really understand it. So I was recruited. I came to Missouri, which I ended up in Missouri. I moved from South Florida for Springfield Public Schools, which is the largest school district in the state. And I came aboard as their facilities director back in 2006. And then Hammond's Hotels and Resorts recruited me from there in 2016. So I had done 10 years and I was pretty comfortable. I had built my team. I had everything running like clockwork. It was predictable. I had a pretty good gig. I had a lot of leave time, a lot of vacation time. So we traveled, we went to Europe. We did a lot of stuff. And then Hammond's Hotels came over and recruited me. And I had no idea this world existed. And I thought, wow, okay, the budgets are better. I actually get to do some execution and get to do some implementation. So it was kind of new. I got too comfortable in that world, and I came over, implemented a new work order system, implemented policies and procedures, a lot of different process that came from that world that leaned out the way that we do business, and then the wheels fell off. So I went right back to that old method and said, okay, this is tried and true. I know how to do this and get through it temporarily. So we're starting to gear back up to move into a bigger spend and a much bigger show when it comes to operating. I've always likened my job. If you've ever been to the circus, if you're sitting on the sidelines at the circus, the inevitable guy or gal comes out and they spin a plate, and then they get another plate, and then they get another plate, and before you know it, they have 50 plates spinning, and every once in a while you have to go wiggle that one plate. That's what I do for a living. When somebody asks me, what is it you do exactly? I said, I spin a lot of plates. And there's a lot of truth to that. So some plates need some attention at the moment, and you focus on those, and you just got to keep them spinning. And that's really the world that I live in, and I enjoy every minute of it. The odds of me being shot doing what I'm doing right now are pretty slim. That's okay. Well, I'll turn the tables. How did you get into this business?
I started as an assistant at Tesla. And then I became, I liked working with people. It was really rewarding just hiring people and then being super thankful about getting a job when they were struggling. And then just the training part, I started helping the safety manager with training. And then I just really liked paying that forward. I was an older, I'm the oldest from all my siblings. So just I guess it was that just teaching people and, hey, this is what I learned. You can learn it too, and it'll help you with this and that. And working my way up, and now just doing training and development and helping someone say, hey, I need help with time management, or I need help with, right now I'm working on with 2 team members they want to learn Spanish. So just building that and being able to help someone grow is what got me into it. And now I'm at FCP working with getting the opportunity to work with 2 mentors, and I was like, I'm not going to pass that up. It's rare to find 1 mentor. Now 2, it was just I couldn't say no to it.
That's fantastic. I grew up I had 4 kids in my family, and I'm the youngest. So my oldest sister, I would call that bossy, where, now I would consider that, being a good coach, understanding, hey, I've been through this and I'm going to coach you. Just like having kids, my wife and I, we raised daughters, and understanding how that world works, and understanding that kids need those boundaries, and you got to coach them around. And one of her big sayings is, our kids can't see around corners. So we're here to help them, understand that. And it's the same way of being a supervisor, or being a leader, or being a boss, or being whatever, in this role right now, is understanding how to coach people is huge. There are a lot of people that handle it very poorly. And I think that the industry has done a bad job of growing leaders in a lot of respects. But I think that there are some people that get it, and they can change that dynamic. And just by being good humans, I think it really comes into play. And if you have experience growing up coaching younger siblings, makes a huge difference. Yeah,
it has helped me. And like the communication part, like I hadn't realized how important it was, but just telling someone why we're doing this has taken like it from one level to the next, like exponentially.
Yes.
So I try to tell them that too, like, hey, this is why we're doing this. It's not because we just want to give you more work. There's a reason why, and we have an agenda for you and for your growth. So Yeah.
Absolutely. The why is huge. And I do a whole speech on the why, and a lot of people don't understand the why, because the why might come down from ownership who
Hmm.
has, a whole different reason and don't understand what's going on in the weeds. But the desired outcome is X. So here's the
Hmm.
why, and I think that that's big, to go in and explain that and have people understand. So you're all rowing in the same direction.
Yes. Thank you. So, how do you stay informed of new industry trends?
I only do, when it comes to trades, I communicate a lot with my peers.
Hmm.
So my peer group in this industry and we probably text back and forth more than I ever did in any other organization other than being a cop, because you need to coordinate efforts, with your coworkers, because the desired outcome is to live,
Hmm.
and to close that out and get your report written and move on, right? Other things can happen if you're not coordinated and you're not proactive in handling a situation like that. So in every industry I've been in, I really haven't had a lot of peers to discuss what the industry trends are. Who are you using for this? How's your results been here? Do you have a source for employees in this area? Things like that you collaborate with a peer group. And I probably haven't done that nearly as much in any other industry as I have in hospitality. People are more open in this world. If you're in the market with somebody that you share a hotel with, you can understand service providers. Who's good, who knows this equipment, who understands this building, all the way to engineering firms. Which engineer have you used for this, that, or the other, and what's your experience been? And I'm using these folks now; they're fantastic. So if you need a source for this, we share a lot of that information, and that really hasn't happened in the past. So
Hmm.
for staying informed, I do a lot of that, and I go to a couple of
The
trade
computer
shows every year.
froze.
One being Hotel Point, that is one that I go to every
Okay, there
year,
we go. Hmm.
and the other is ASHRAE. I'll go to ASHRAE every other year and understand mechanical trends when it comes to air conditioning and heating, and what's on deck, what's control systems and backwards engineering, and what's still viable and what's not viable, and things like that, so I can plan for the future.
Nice. I know one of them is LinkedIn. Is there any other pages that we can connect with?
You know, I am engaged with LinkedIn fairly regularly. I have a lot of contacts there, and I don't get a lot of my industry, I guess, know-how, technical knowledge there, but I get a lot of industry connections. People that do X, and that's really where I mine LinkedIn. And I'll advertise for employees. I'll recruit through LinkedIn, through direct messaging. A lot of times I'll find people that I think would be a good fit for us. Where do you see you guys going in the next 6 to 12 months? What is your plan?
Oh, we are working on right now. We're working on the budgets for next year. This,
Mm-hmm.
how we're gonna create all the groups and all of our crews, and recruiting has been super hard. So we just have to reevaluate our recruiting efforts and how we're gonna do that. As far as projects, just making sure we're pleasing our clients and making sure they have everything we need. As far as a specific project, I don't have the details yet. We
Sure.
haven't had our meeting, but it is coming up this
I
week.
gotcha. Yeah, and I think a lot of the spreading the gospel, or sharing what you guys do with people has been huge. When you have as many properties as we have, and you have an ADA survey, for instance, that needs to take place on parking lots, or if you have a building survey that needs to take place on envelopes, the technology that's out there and the folks that aren't aware of it is astounding to me. To let them know that IDS can show up with a drone operator and totally map your project down to like a millimeter, the entire exterior, roof, and parking lot of your facility in less than 4 or 5 hours, is amazing. And, there's a lot of people that just don't know this. They, and they go, what? I called, somebody to come out and assess my envelope. And, they came out with a pair of binoculars and a sketch pad. And you go, okay, welcome to 1995. It's, you gotta move that forward a little bit. So, understanding that when I used to price envelope, we have a lot of hotels that have EIFS, okay? I'll go on record saying that people should be jailed that started designing EIFS and split face block construction for anything. Those are some of the most challenging materials to work with in our world. But it used to be a wild card. So I would have a building assessed, and it would be, okay, we're going to allow for 2,000 feet of crack seal. We're going to allow for 4,000 feet of moldings for windows and whatever. You do an IDS survey, you know exactly what you need on that building. And you get a unit cost for additional and put an allowance in there, but it's pretty dead on. So my project pricing goes from blurry to totally focused and real. And that made a huge difference in our world. Doing 360 surveys, doing, scanning of buildings that don't have as-built drawings. Huge. So, I appreciate the business you guys are in, and every opportunity I get, I market it, because it not only helps me as a professional in the industry that I've chosen to work in, but it helps other people that might not know about it. And it gives them a shortcut to getting to the place where they can understand their buildings and get better pricing and know what their capital spend is going to be.
What is some new technology that you've seen come across in the construction industry? I know it feels a little slow because a lot of the work is manual.
Yeah.
But like, what have you seen that comes across, like IDS, for example?
Yeah, it's drone technology. I think is probably the latest and greatest, and the biggest leap in technological innovation. Infrared drones, having the understanding and the ability to see where you're taking in moisture in a building and seeing that has really been a big leap forward for us, and it's been very helpful.
Awesome. Mm-hmm. Well, I want to thank you for being a part of this podcast. I really enjoyed our conversation, and I did learn a lot. I am actually interested. Part of it is in creating assets through buildings or shopping centers, and this definitely helps. And I want to see if I can further connect with you if I have any other questions.
Absolutely, yes. Use me as a resource. I will point you in any direction that I feel can help you. And I'm always big on that. I'll help anybody grow in anything that they want to do if I'm able. So by all means, it's been my pleasure, and I look forward to seeing you at Hotel Point next week.
You too.
Thanks. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thanks for listening. To learn more, visit fcpservices.com. Until next time, remember, people drive growth.